pedestrian hit by a city bus remains in critical condition. Bruce Hire decides to go green. And injured workers protest outside the city casino. Good evening and thank you for joining us. A 72-year-old woman remains in critical condition after being struck by a city transit bus yesterday evening. The pedestrian accident occurred at the intersection of South Algoma Street and Waverly Street just before 7 o'clock when Audrey Kokkonen was hit. She was rushed to hospital where she remains in critical condition. Traffic was diverted around the area while the police traffic unit investigated the scene.
At about 7 o'clock last night, we had a collision between a pedestrian and a city transit bus at the intersection of Waverly Street and Algoma. Mrs. Audrey Kokkonen was crossing the street from the east side to the west side, and she was struck by the southbound bus.
Officials at Thunder Bay Transit are not commenting on the incident. The police investigation is expected to be wrapped up by Monday.
Thunder Bay Superior North MP Bruce Hire officially switched to the Green Party today. The move, which has been expected for some time, doubles the size of the party's caucus in the House of the Commons. Cheryl Holmes has more from the former NDP turned independent MP on why he made the switch.
Bruce Hire quit the NDP party just over a year and a half ago. He's now officially announced his intention to join the Green Party. The move means that Green leader Elizabeth May has a second MP in her caucus, and Hire says he'll now adhere to the 6 basic principles of the Greens.
I believe in these, and it will be required that I stick to them. They have to do with sustainability, nonviolence, social and economic justice, participatory democracy, and diversity of all kinds, biological and cultural.
Hire says he considered joining both the Liberal and NDP parties, but ultimately decided that the Greens were the best fit for his political ideals. He won't be forced to vote against the will of his constituents. May says she's okay with that. She preaches a constituents first policy and calls this a very exciting step.
It's going to be exponential in terms of being able to demonstrate that you can be in a political party where your voice is the voice for your constituency and not the packaged message track from your leader and a bunch of backroom spin doctors. So it's exciting for Canada.
I'll still be just as independent, and I'll have the resources of a really well-organized party to help me with my job. It's a win-win, and if anybody can see it otherwise, I'd really love them to explain the logic to me.
One of the people who does see it otherwise is NDP ethics critic Charlie Angus, who calls this move self-centered and disrespectful to the voters of Hire's constituency. Angus says Hire now represents a party that receives only 3% of the votes in Thunder Bay Superior North, betraying the other 97% of voters in his riding who voted opposed to the Green Party in the 2011 election.
He's very dedicated to his party, and he's chosen to put his party ahead of Canada and his constituents, and I'm choosing to put my constituents ahead of the party.
Cheryl Holmes, TBT News.
The Northwest Local Health Integration Network has a very different assessment of the Thunder Bay Regional Hospital's finances. In an interview earlier this week, the Executive Vice President of Patient Services said the hospital needs an extra $5 million in base funding. But according to the head of the LHIN, the regional hospital will finish the year with a balanced budget. Dennis Ward explains.
Overcapacity pressures at the regional hospital are creating what the board calls substantial financial pressures. As we reported earlier this week, the hospital currently receives funding for 386 beds, but has 420 patients on hand right now. Executive Vice President of Patient Services, Dr. Mark Henderson, said an additional $5 million would be a step in the right direction.
It would prevent us from running a deficit this year, which is going to be very difficult to avoid. It turns out we are an extremely efficient hospital, and we do try and keep costs to a minimum. But when you have 40 to 50 patients in hospital that are not as it were, being paid for, it's very difficult to balance your books.
But Northwest Lynn CEO Laura Kokaczynski doesn't believe the hospital is going to be in the red at all, even though a report by the Lynn acknowledges hospital deficits started at the regional in 2010.
We do know that right now Thunder Bay Regional is experiencing an overcapacity issue, which is putting some pressure and creating some additional expenses. However, they are tracking and forecasting to a balanced budget by the end of the year.
But that's not the way MPP Michael Gravel understands it. Gravel knows the hospital is under pressure and overcapacity, and he says a familiar situation to this happened last year with additional funds being requested, and those funds were granted.
So the fact is, it's quite legitimate to go to the Ministry of Health and to make these kinds of requests. And you're right, it is towards the end of the year. But on the other hand, if the hospital basically provides services, particularly related to acute care, that they're not funded for, but yet obviously the system expects them to provide those services, it's my perspective that they should be funded for it.
A report to the hospital board says the only way to balance the budget without additional funding would be to make certain service cuts, and that would compromise the hospital's regional and academic role. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Well, in spite of the frigid temperatures today, a group of people gathered outside the OLG casino to stand up for workers' rights. The protesters are calling for changes to the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. The casino was chosen as the picket location because the protesters claim that staff at the facility are prone to repetitive strain injuries. Protest organizer Steve Mantis says Ontario Lottery and Gaming hasn't taken the steps necessary to make the workplace safe.
And people that are working in the front end, they know after 10 years you're going to have a repetitive strain injury, you're going to have permanent disabilities on your limbs. This same information has come from the casinos in Windsor and in Winnipeg as well, where research has been done verifying this. So the management knows this, and instead of actually bringing in preventive measures, they choose to say, you're dispensable.
Officials with OLG say they can't speak to any specific claims made by the group, but they insist the Thunder Bay Casino takes the health and safety of its employees very seriously. And they point out the facility has 8 different training programs in place for injury prevention for their staff, along with numerous awareness campaigns.
The owner of a dog accused of mauling an 11-year-old boy at Tarbert Park last year is set to begin his trial in March. Police say 57-year-old Frank Van Troba and his 6 dogs were inside the boarded rink at the park on Brock Street on November 17th of last year. Dante Mekanek, now 12, climbed over the boards and suffered serious injuries to his face after an altercation with one of the dogs, believed to be a boxer. The incident left Mekanek requiring 65 stitches to his face. Van Troba is facing a charge of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. The trial is scheduled for 3 days starting March 4th.
Well, an update now on that load of grain that was mysteriously dumped on the Thunder Bay waterfront last week. Back on December 3rd, we showed you pictures of the MV Saginaw dumping a large quantity of grain onto the dock at Richardson Terminal. The grain had been loaded onto the ship just the day before. Officials with Richardson declined to comment on the situation, but sources told us it was because the cargo hadn't been properly inspected before being loaded. Ministry of the Environment inspectors then told the company the grain had to be removed. MOE spokesperson Lisa Brigadier says the work is now underway to vacuum the grain back into the elevator. She notes the process has been hampered by the recent cold weather, but insists the ministry is satisfied with the company's efforts to deal with the situation.
The Nishnabbe Police Service welcomed 5 new constables into their ranks today, and one of them was presented with a special award. NAPS welcomed Chris Lockwood, Ray Bailey, Mitch LaFlamme, Hugh Brennan, and Don Loker into their force. The officers received their badges and warrant cards, while Loker received an Outstanding Achievement Award. The constables will be sent to remote reserves patrolled by NAPS, located everywhere from Sandy Lake to Slate Falls.
It was a long journey. It was getting all the pieces of my life in the right order and going back and doing all the things that I hadn't done that I needed to do to get myself ready to apply. And it was a very long process for me, but when you want something bad enough, you just stick to your guns and you do whatever you have to do to get there, and it paid off.
As of January 2014, NAPS will have 6 more vacancies to fill in their service.
Drivers at the busy corner of May and Miles Streets had an unusual obstacle to navigate around this morning. A traffic light pole that was toppled and lay in the middle of the intersection. It appears the pole was accidentally struck by a city sidewalk sander. Work crews had to cut the pole into pieces before removing it. Traffic slowed to a crawl until it was removed. There's no word on what caused the sander to crash into the pole.
With the temperatures holding stubbornly below seasonal values, one local restaurant has decided to embrace the cold to help get some of our city's less fortunate out of the cold and inside for a good meal. Come tomorrow, this ice bar on the outdoor patio at Five Forks Restaurant will be complete just in time for what restaurant officials have dubbed the first annual Five Forks Freeze. The restaurant and patio, according to operating partner Chris Bliznikis, will be turned into a nightclub. All proceeds from ticket sales will go to the Dewdrop Inn Soup Kitchen at St. Andrew's Church.
There's so many people out there that don't have that luxury of knowing where that meal is going to come from. And an organization like the Dewdrop Inn, it's fantastic. You know, when you know that they're going to provide for all these people, and whether it's from children to seniors, quite frankly, it's the least that we can do.
I became involved in 2005. That year we fed 38,000 people. Last year it was 59,000. It appears that we will be about 64,000 this year.
Tickets for tomorrow's event can be purchased at Five Forks for $20 a piece.
They'll be a little bit chilly out
Yeah,
there
for
on the
sure.
patio.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of chilly, we're in for another chillier than chilly night, Fiona, but there is hope on the horizon, I hear.
Yeah, very, very cold night tonight, and we seem to be kind of locked into it right now. We're under this frigid dome of cold air, high pressure center trying to pull more northwest winds into the region, making it even colder still. You have to get just south of the jet stream to be in this range of more seasonal values, and we are nowhere near it. So buckle down and get ready for more of it, because today we topped out with a high of -20. That's under mainly sunny skies, but with the wind chill felt close to -29, and it just got colder from there. First thing this morning and into the mid-morning hours, we saw temperatures continue to drop, and they only started to come back up in the last few hours. And that's with winds from the west-northwest, at times up to 34 kilometers per hour. Right now we're at -21, and if we head further westward, clouds in Fort Frances, -22, of course, with the wind chill feels like closer to -31, and just gets cooler as you head north, despite the nice skies right now in Red Lake. That lack of cloud cover is actually making it a little bit colder, because any daytime heat, such as it is just going to dissipate when there's no clouds to hold it in. So it is frigidly cold up towards Red Lake. And down towards Sault Ste. Marie, they're seeing more snow. They're probably a little tired of shoveling after all of the snows and snow squalls this week. But at least their temperature is a little bit milder. They're currently at -16 in Sault Ste. Marie. Now tonight, Thunder Bay is going to drop down to a low of -24, so we've only got about 3 degrees to go to hit our low. Unfortunately, with that, the wind chill is going to feel like -34, and that's with winds only 8 kilometers per hour. You can imagine if it was a little bit more gusty what it would feel like. So -34, that's about as cold as we need it to be. As we head into Saturday, we've got some light flurries just south of us, and it's running in this direction that it looks like we're just hitting the edge of it. So we might get just a touch of snowfall tomorrow. And as you can see, the warmer air is still well to the south of us. That pattern's going to hold into early next week, but the good news is, as this low moves in with a little bit more snow, we might finally start to see a little bit of a warm-up. The best we can hope for this weekend is that with the lighter winds, the wind chill won't be quite as biting. I'll have more details on the exact temperatures you're going to have to dress for. It's later on in the NewsHour.
Thanks, Fiona. Well, it was a terrifying incident in Colorado this afternoon as a gunman started firing at a Colorado high school. Stay with us. That story's next.
A suspected gunman is dead following a shooting at a Colorado high school. 2 students were injured, one seriously. The local sheriff told reporters the alleged shooter died of self-inflicted wounds. It happened in Centennial, the same region as Little Colorado, where the Columbine High School massacre took place in 1999.
Well, another conservative has announced he is leaving the Senate, the third such departure in the past month. This time, it's the high-profile Hugh Siegel, who will become master of Massey College. Siegel was one of the few conservatives who spoke out against the government over the Senate suspensions last month, but it's not the only time he's been offside with his party. Rosemary Barton spoke with Siegel today.
We are the best of mates.
Absolutely.
We are the world's dancing duo of red Tories.
For months, Hugh Siegel has been offside, pushing back on conservative Senate leadership and the government.
So I didn't see that as a difficult time. I saw it as a stressful time in terms of taking a stand.
So while his departure may not be surprising, he says it has nothing to do with the Senate scandal.
I have had not a scintilla of blowback, either from the leadership in the Senate or the Prime Minister's office. They've been aware of my position on that issue from the very beginning. I kept them informed day by day, and I've had no blowback at all.
But Siegel's stance in the upper chamber has been rebellious, to say the least. He led the move to kill a private member's bill that would have forced unions to disclose salaries and spending, and he did it in spite of the fact that the government wanted it passed.
You know what? Sometimes the most loyal thing you can do for a government is to keep it from taking a mistake and making it worse. And I think that that's what our collective efforts in the Senate did.
To say nothing of his forceful and vocal defense of Senator Pamela Wallin and what he believed was a lack of due process when the Senate moved to suspend 3 senators without pay. That process has put the Senate under an extreme amount of public and political pressure.
The very last day, I'm leaving this afternoon.
In the past weeks, Conservative Senators Gerald Como and David Braley have also announced their retirement. No one is attributing it to the recent troubles in the Senate, but everyone knows it has been a rough few months.
So I think you're right. There has been some of that pain and anguish, and I'm sure that a lot of my colleagues on both sides will give some thought over the Christmas holidays with their families, whether this is the sort of way that they want to spend, the next 5 or 6 years of their life.
That is at least part of the reason the Conservative Senate caucus is meeting today and tomorrow to discuss the way forward.
I think we need to improve and to send the message that we want a Senate more accountable, transparent, and efficient.
Siegel will have been a senator for 9 years when he retires from the upper chamber. That will happen in June, likely far too soon for him to see any of the Senate reforms the Conservatives are attempting to put in place.
Well, there was some good news for a change on the jobs front in Ontario today. This after weeks of plant closings and layoffs. Giant U.S. computer networking company Cisco is planning to invest $4 billion and hire 1,700 people over the next 6 years. The Ontario government, meanwhile, is kicking in $220 million in grants. Ron Charles reports.
Minister Hoskins. As far as job creation deals go, this is a big one. The president of Cisco Systems' Canadian operation signed it today with Ontario's premier. The company plans to hire up to 1,700 high-tech workers and invest up to $4 billion over 6 years. The province kicks in up to $220 million in grants.
We're approached and visited every day by governors and presidents and individuals that would like to have us bring the kind of knowledge-based jobs that we bring to an economy.
He says Cisco picked Ontario because of its high-tech university graduates, low corporate taxes, and those government grants. As Cisco arrives, Ontario has been bleeding traditional manufacturing jobs. Heinz is closing this ketchup plant, eliminating 740 jobs. Another 550 will disappear with this Kellogg's plant.
It pains me when we lose jobs, but the reality is that there are businesses that are in transition. We are moving from a different kind of manufacturing base to advanced manufacturing.
Cisco is one of the companies that makes equipment to keep the internet working. It has 75,000 employees around the world. Before today's announcement, only 1,200 of them were in Canada. This business professor says the Cisco deal is the kind of job creation Canada needs to replace traditional manufacturing.
What we want to see is what will replace this relatively low-value manufacturing is higher-end manufacturing high R&D.
It should be noted that once upon a time, Cisco's biggest competitor was a Canadian company employing 95,000 people worldwide, 26,000 of them right here in Canada. That company, Nortel Networks, went bankrupt in 2009. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Ottawa says it wants to tighten the rules for transporting oil in this country. It's introducing new standards and making it clear just how dangerous cargoes are. As Cameron McIntosh reports, the announcement comes as the investigation into the Lac-Mégantic disaster takes a new turn.
5 months after the Lac-Mégantic tragedy, Transport Canada now confirms it's investigating Irving Oil to determine if it followed appropriate shipping rules on the train that derailed and exploded. At the same time, the federal government wants to change the rules for transporting the type of crude that was in those cars.
Given that there is increased transportation of this lighter, more dangerous crude, I think that's what's driving the decision to classify crude as highly dangerous rather than just a dangerous substance.
The oil that exploded in Lac-Mégantic was a very light crude that contained benzene, making it more explosive. That was never indicated on the cars. Transport Canada says it's consulting with railways and oil companies on new standards for testing crude and labeling it when it's loaded onto trains. Saying in a statement, it's clear that there's a need for higher safety standards to deal with the massive growth in oil being shipped by rail through cities and towns. Over the last year, daily rail shipments of oil have jumped from 70,000 barrels to 200,000. The industry says that's only going to grow.
It's an important mode of transportation that we need to see to be able to continue that. And so in order to continue that, we need to see that the public is confident that the rules are right.
While critics applaud tougher rules, they also say this government has a history of being cozy with railways and oil companies.
We hope that the working group will be transparent and will actually, come with real concrete measures.
The federal government wants to do this quickly. It's expecting recommendations by February. Meanwhile, Transport Canada isn't commenting on its investigation into Irving. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, thousands of people hoping to pay their final respects to Nelson Mandela had to be turned away today. An estimated 100,000 people lined up for the third and final day of Mandela's viewing. As Susan Ormiston tells us, some of them waited up to 5 hours in the hot sun.
The last day was the biggest. Crowds, the largest here in Pretoria at Union Buildings. The final day to see Nelson Mandela lying in state for his official goodbye. The crowd started to gather overnight in Pretoria. They had swelled to 100,000 people by mid-morning. The government had to cut off the lines at midday, saying not everyone who wanted to would be able to see Mandela. The disappointment was too much for some. There were scuffles with police and people waiting expressed their regrets.
No, I've been here 5 o'clock early in the morning.
No, this is not fair. And today is last day. At least maybe they were making 2 weeks. It's enough for our president.
The government thanked South Africans, saying the response was warm and overwhelming in this week of mourning and encouraged people to now remember Mandela in a private way. In front of the Union Buildings, a brand new giant statue of Nelson Mandela waits to be unveiled on Monday. Late in the day, Mandela's casket left the Union Buildings for a last time, surrounded by mourners and by family members. Funeral preparations now turn to the Eastern Cape. Tomorrow, Mandela's body, accompanied by his family, will be flown to Mthatha, put on a gun carriage and taken to Qunu, Mandela's ancestral home. 5,000 people are expected for the state funeral on Sunday morning, and South African Defence Force is tightening security, making a 3-kilometer cordon around the burial site. Among the people coming of the dignitaries, many leaders of African states, Prince Charles of Britain and Jesse Jackson from the United States. The final moments for Nelson Mandela's funeral will be private, as his body is interred in South African soil. It will just be his family surrounding him. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Pretoria.
Fuel surcharges, airport tax, reduced baggage allowances. Travelers have been hit with a lot of new charges over the past few years, and now another one may be coming. Dan Buckner has the story.
There's your tickets. It's all here, okay?
Yeah. Hugh Castles is heading south.
And you've got the Husa Care Santa Maria all-inclusive. 2 weeks.
Unfortunately, the value of the Canadian dollar is also heading south, down to 2008 levels. Tour operators are considering a new currency-related surcharge. The CEO of Transat says his company may add $25 to every customer's bill. Sunwing is considering the same.
When the Canadian dollar goes back up again next year, they won't take the surcharge, the $25 back.
Right now, though, the dollar has had a bad fall. It's down 8% so far this year. Tour operators like Sunwing and Transat pay some of their biggest costs, like fuel and hotels, in American dollars. So the fall of the loonie has hit them hard. Travel agency owner Michael Jew sympathizes with the operators. He wants them to survive.
I don't think that the tour operators are out to gouge the customer. I think they're just trying to protect themselves, and it's alarming to see that, the dollar has dropped 8%.
Transat has just made its first profit in 3 years. Clearly, its CEO and Sunwing's boss believe $25 a customer could bring in millions. Hugh Castles isn't concerned.
Another $25 one way or the other doesn't mean anything to me.
He's got a bigger beef with American-based airlines.
When I go to Arizona and Florida, got to pay $8 for a crummy little submarine sandwich.
A decision on the surcharge hasn't been made yet, but it appears tour operators are confident it won't prevent Canadians from trying to escape winter. Diane Buckner, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, let's take a look at some of today's market activity. The TSX was up 11 points to 13,125. The Dow advanced 15 points to 15,755, and the Nasdaq added 2.5 points to 4,000. The Canadian dollar was up 0.4 to 94.38 cents US. Gold up almost $10 to $1,234 an ounce, and oil was down 90 cents to $96.60 per barrel. Well, Thunder Bay North Stars are out for revenge tonight. Randy, they look to rebound after an overtime loss to Minnesota. Should be a matchup between two evenly matched teams at the Port Arthur Arena tonight.
Yeah, there's lots on the lineup for the North Stars. This is they're right in the midst of a really tough stretch. They've got English River in at the Gardens tomorrow night. Then they're off to Fort Francis. Then they get the Iron Rangers again just before Christmas. So time to put together a streak. Well, your Thunder Bay North Stars will try and pad their second-place lead over the Iron Rangers to 4 points tonight at 7:30 at, note the location, it's Port Arthur Arena when they play host to Minnesota in SIJHL action. On Thunder Bay Television, CKPR tonight at 9 o'clock, a special treat. We got the Canucks hosting the Oilers. There are 2 other NHL games. New Jersey visits Pittsburgh and Florida entertains Washington. Last night was busy. We'll begin in Philadelphia, where the Flyers were looking for their first win over Montreal this season. Michael Raffl is out to change that as the Flyers rookie is set up in the slot by Jakub Voracek. He'll whip in his second of the season past Carey Price. It was the only goal of the period. Second period, they tack on another. It's Flyers captain Claude Giroux with his 6th of a nice cross-ice pass from Voracek. 2-zip after 40. Final minute of the third, Alex Galchenyuk closes out the scoring with his 9th. It's too little, too late, Ryan. Habs lose 2-1. In Calgary, the Flames eke out a 2-1 win over Carolina in overtime. Chris Butler strikes from long range with about 3 seconds to go. In Edmonton, Jerome McGinley does in the Oilers. He had a pair. Bruins double up the home team 4-2. Next up, Ottawa. Craig Anderson stole a 2-1 win for the Senators with 40 stops. They hold off the Sabres. In Winnipeg, the Jets and Avalanche need a shootout. P.A. Parento is the hero, beating Andre Pavelec. Colorado takes it 4-3. And in St. Louis, David Backes scored a pair. Jaden Schwartz added 1. Also had 2 helpers. Blues bury the Leafs 6-3. Well, when you're second last in your conference and you haven't made the Stanley Cup playoffs in 4 years, there's no such thing as job security. Jay Feaster found that out yesterday when he was fired by the Calgary Flames. The truculent one, interim GM Brian Burke, outlines what he'll be looking for in the new general manager.
We're not hostile enough for me. I don't like playing flag football. I like teams that bang, and this is not, I don't like the way we play. And I think that there's, you need a blueprint, and you need a determination to assemble a team a certain way. And that's what this GM's going to have. Not because it's Brian Burke's view on life that we like big hockey or hard hockey, but that's what wins in our league. And so that's the first thing, is that person's got to be a guy that shares that blueprint, that we want black and blue hockey here. That's what we do in Alberta.
He's got some hard-working hair, I'm telling you. UFC welterweight champ Georges St. Pierre is giving up his title. The 32-year-old Canadian says he's taking a break to deal with some personal issues and gave no indication when he will return to the octagon. Catherine Cullen has more.
Georges St. Pierre says the stress has become too much. Now, he is at the top of his sport, welterweight champion since 2007. He's an enormous draw for the UFC, clean cut and polite in an environment that's often criticized as brutal. But he says the pressure of competing is simply too much, that he obsesses over each fight, that the trash talk, the cameras, the constant questions when he's out in public are simply too overwhelming. So he's walking away.
I did not allow myself to have a normal life. And right now it's been too long that I've been living like this. And I need a break if I want to keep a mental stability before it's too late.
St. Pierre has also made reference to problems in his personal life, saying that it's a zoo right now, but saying he wants to keep the details private. Now, St. Pierre will be giving up his title, but he won't call this retirement. He says he still wants to have the option of coming back, though he won't commit to that, and he certainly won't commit to a date. He does say if he comes back, it will be on his own terms. Now, certainly there will be a lot of pressure on him to return. His last win was highly controversial, and the UFC president has already said he'd like to see a rematch. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, the 4 new players the Toronto Raptors acquired earlier this week from Sacramento and the Rudy Gay swap will make their debut tonight as the Raps welcome Philadelphia to the hangar. The Raps are 7-13. Now let's check out the Week 15 opener in the National Football League last night. On their first possession of the game, Denver will open the scoring. Peyton Manning hits receiver Andre Caldwell in traffic for the 15-yard touchdown reception. They make it 7-0 Denver. After trading field goals, San Diego ties it at 10 as Philip Rivers finds Keenan Allen on the crossing route. He'll do the rest as he fights his way in for his 6th touchdown this year. We had 10s. The Chargers would take a 17-10 halftime lead as Rivers and Allen hook up again. This time it's a 10-yard strike in the house for the rookie. Early in the third quarter, Rivers gives the ball to Ryan Matthews. He'll take it outside and go 23 yards to the end zone for the TD. San Diego seemingly in control, 24-10. Fourth quarter, Manning marches the Bronx 88 yards on 12 plays, culminating with that 5-yard sling pass to Caldwell. He ends up with 2 majors, but the Chargers keep their playoff hopes alive, pulling off the upset 27-20. In high school varsity boys basketball last night, Jordan Kelly canned 24 points as Churchill improves to 2-1, downing Westgate 78-68. Over in varsity girls volleyball, St. Ignatius handed Hammersholt their first loss, 2-1. And Vancouver is the latest city to be awarded an event on the Canadian PGA Tour next year. We get the details in this report.
When Adam Cornelsen striped the first drive of PGA Tour Canada's golf season at the Uplands Golf Club in Victoria, it began a year of golf that went from coast to coast in our country. Come May of 2014, the fairways and greens of Point Grey will be the starting point for a tour which is just 2 short hops away from where every pro golfer aims to be, the PGA Tour.
I think it's amazing to showcase the city, showcase Point Grey Golf and Country Club, with the fact that there's so many local pros that play on PGA Tour Canada that we're going to have a chance to have an event in our hometown. I think it's extremely exciting.
When I think about it, like I'm a fan of golf as well, and I know that when the Canadian Open comes to Shaughnessy, I go as well, and I watch the golf, and I'm around with the crowds and everything like that. So I'm excited for that, and that means a lot to me to be that player that people are coming to watch, like from my hometown, and get to see the crowds from the players' point of view.
The PC Financial Open at Point Grey Golf and Country Club marks the return of professional golf to Vancouver. President's Choice signing a 3-year deal as title sponsor. It also adds another PGA Tour Canada flag in BC, extending the tour's footprint within our province. This past season, the tour had 9 tournaments. Next year, it grows to 12 events. And of the 5 players who earned Web.com tour cards, the top 2 were Canadians, including Comox's Riley Wilden, who topped 5 in Victoria and 1 in Alberta.
From the get-go, we wanted to have a tournament in Vancouver. When we made the announcement of moving forward and this 2013 schedule, we were already working on the 2014 schedule, and really priority number 1 was Vancouver.
Ideally, PGA Tour Canada sees itself hosting a 13 or 14 tournament schedule. Another stop in BC is being looked at, with Kelowna a possible landing spot. The 2014 season begins May 26th at the Point Grey Golf and Country Club. Jay Janower, Global Sports.
The Sports Top Queens Midget AA girls hockey team is in Blaine, Minnesota for a 2-nation showcase tournament this weekend. They open against Dallas, Texas. The Bantam Single A Queens are in Cloquet, Minnesota this weekend. They play tonight against Owatonna. Toronto FC shored up its anemic offense, signing Brazilian striker Gilberto as its second designated player. The team has failed to make the Major League Soccer playoffs in their 7-year history. Baseball news, the New York Yankees have lost another pitcher from their bullpen. Boone Logan has signed a 3-year, $16 million contract with Colorado. And Cincinnati first baseman Joey Votto has won the Tip O'Neill Award as Canada's top baseball player for a 4th straight year. So, way to go, Joey.
He's a good one.
He is. Too bad he wasn't a Blue Jay.
It is too bad. Nice to see him in that uniform at some point in the future.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, well, on CKPR Thunder Bay tonight, if all that snow isn't getting you in the mood, well, the Canadian Tenors are going to give it their best shot. They've got their season of song tonight. With more, here's a complete lineup on Teletalk.
Tonight, we've got visits from old ghosts and an even older vendetta on Global Thunder Bay. Starting at 8 on Bones, while recovering from a gunshot, Brennan has visions of her mother. Then at 9 on Hawaii 5-0, an old crime committed within internment camps is reopened. And at 10 on Giving You the Business, top employees are given a chance to change their lives. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay, celebrate the holiday with old friends and a slap shot or two. First at 8, the Canadian tenors perform with Paul Anka, David Foster, and Justin Bieber, among others. Then at 9 p.m., it's Hockey Night in Canada as Edmonton and Vancouver face off. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, it's pretty much been the same story all week, Fiona. Very cold days, even colder nights.
And tonight's going to be new, different. Today we topped out with a high of -20. Wind chill felt like -29. Yes, it's going to get colder tonight. We just have to be patient to see a little bit of a break in these cold temperatures because I've heard it multiple times this week. This feels like February, and it's not. All right, let's take a look at one part of the country where it's not February for sure. Vancouver, 6 Celsius, so instead of snow, they're dealing with rain. Prince George, just slightly above the freezing mark. Edmonton, currently at -17. They've had periods of snow most of the day. Wind chills have been hovering around -25. Calgary at -13 has been dealing with blowing snow. They actually topped out with a high of -9 today, so it was a little chilly, but not too bad in southern Alberta. As we head into southern Saskatchewan, things take a definite change and turn for the worse. in some cases. Saskatoon currently at minus 20. That's their high. Their low today was minus 23. So not a lot of fluctuation in temperatures. And they've had a fair amount of snow with wind chills in the mid-30s pretty consistently for the last 24 hours. Regina currently at minus 21 with drifting snow. Winnipeg at this hour, mainly cloudy, minus 25. There is definitely snow on the way. And it's all coming from southern Saskatchewan. As we head into southern Ontario, things are definitely cooling off there as well, for just in time for the pre-Christmas activities. Toronto's currently at minus 11 under partly cloudy skies, and Ottawa and into Montreal is currently at minus 17. There is a winter storm watch that's in effect, and that is talking about a system that's going to be coming up basically Saturday night into Sunday. Quebec City, even colder still at minus 20 and clear skies. In the Maritimes, a cool day indeed, minus 13 and clear for Fredericton. Charlottetown at minus 12 has had some light snow for much of the day, as has Halifax. They're currently at minus 11, and of course, wind chills are closer to the minus 20s or colder. St. John's currently at minus 10 under a few clouds. They too are looking forward to some light snow. Today, high pressure center is sweeping through. Tomorrow, we've got all of this potential for precipitation pushing up from the Great Lakes. Now remember, this is not specifically snow. This is the potential for snow, bringing moist air into the region. And it is coming from the southwest, so that is good news if you want slightly warmer temperatures, but we're still dealing with wind chill values, so not quite as warm as some might like. Sunday, it will start to clear out. By Monday, we are in for round 2, and that's where we definitely start to see a change in temperature. Take a look at what's happening right now. We are in some very cold temperatures in the mid-teens tonight, frigid minus 20s. As we head into Saturday, kind of a repeat of today, maybe a little bit warmer Sunday, and then Monday. There's the warm up as we see that green come up from the south. Green is good if you're getting a little too cold with these temperatures. Tonight, minus 31 in Atikokan, minus 27 in Fort Frances, cloudy skies. More clouds to the east. Marathon at minus 29 tonight, minus 20 in Sault Ste. Marie, finally getting a little bit of a break from the snow. And then tomorrow, there's the possibility of some white stuff and temperatures in the high teens, but on the minus side, unfortunately. At this hour, we're at minus 26. Wind chill feels like minus 33, and it's going to be just about minus 24 overnight tonight. As we head into tomorrow, starting with a little bit of light snow by noon, wind chill about minus 17. By 4 o'clock, more light flurries. And then on Sunday, we're looking at a high of minus 12 Monday, 1 to 2 centimeters, a high of minus 5, minus 4 on Tuesday, and then we plunge into those cold temperatures again. So probably the warmest day over the next few days, Monday and Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Well, she's known as an intuitive. Colette Barron-Reed is coming to the city next month to host an interactive workshop called Messages from the Spirit. Brent Hawley has all the details for you in tonight's edition of Front Row Center.
Well, hello, this is Front Row Center. I'm Brent Hawley, letting you know what's happening in the community of Thunder Bay. Once again, mark this one down on your calendar for next year. That's right, your 2014 calendar, one of the first events of the year. It's going to be Messages from the Spirit. It's all happening on Saturday, January the 25th. It's an evening with psychic medium Colette Barron-Reed. Now, it's happening from 7 till 10 over at the Victorian. Now, it's going to be actually an interactive workshop with an internationally renowned author and specialized life coach, educator, and intuitive counselor. She's going to tap into your intuition and help you do readings on other people. She's going to be taking people out of the audience and doing readings on them as well. Now, if you're looking for tickets, you can pick yours up at the Victorian or log on to keynoteevents.com and you can order yours there.
Front Row Center is brought to you by Teleco. We hear you at Teleco, your TBT authorized dealer, 601 Central Avenue.
Well, we might be complaining about the cold here, but after the break, we're going to show you Prince Harry and a team of veterans who are walking in Antarctica. It gets a lot colder there. Stay with us. Prince Harry and a team of veterans have completed a grueling trek to the South Pole. The Prince is part of a Walking with the Wounded expedition. A group of injured soldiers from the U.S., the U.K., Australia, and Canada were on a 300-kilometer race. But because of harsh conditions, the organization decided to slow down the trek. In fact, just a few days ago, Antarctica set a new record for cold, reaching an incredible minus 93 degrees. But the team soldiered on and reached their destination.
One of them didn't even have a glove on when he got off the plane.
I complain if I don't have gloves
here.
here.
They're much tougher than I am.
Yeah, me too.
Recapping our top story now, a 72-year-old woman remains in critical condition tonight after she was struck by a city transit bus last evening. Officials with Thunder Bay Transit aren't commenting on the incident. The police investigation is expected to be wrapped up on Monday.
And a big game coming your way at Port Arthur Arena tonight as the Thunder Bay North Stars go up against the Minnesota Iron Rangers. We'll have highlights later on.
And that's your look at news, weather, and sports. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.